Let's get right into it. Number 1. The Rebel's Dilemma. So, we've marched through the fog of obedience, past the uniformed guards and the bureaucratic cubicles, right up to the edge of the abyss. But here's the final crucial question: why don't more people simply say no? The answer lies in a brutal psychological calculation known as the Rebel's Dilemma. Disobeying an authority isn't a free act of liberation, it's a costly transaction. And your brain, being the lazy accountant it is, almost always concludes that the price of rebellion is too high. Let's break down the cost-benefit analysis your brain performs in a split second. On the cost side of disobedience, you have social rejection, you'll be the difficult one, potential punishment, failing the experiment, losing your job, going to jail, and the intense, visceral anxiety of confronting a power structure. This isn't abstract, it's a flood of stress hormones, a racing heart, a dry mouth. It feels dangerous. On the benefit side of obedience, you have social approval, good participant, the absence of immediate punishment, and the relief of surrendering a difficult choice. The math is overwhelmingly stacked in favor of compliance. The costs of rebelling are immediate, certain, and terrifying. The benefits, maintaining your integrity, preventing some abstract harm, are distant and uncertain. This is why the heroes in these stories are so rare and so remarkable. The rebel isn't just someone with a stronger moral compass, they are someone with a uniquely high tolerance for social friction and immediate, personal risk. They are willing to absorb the certain immediate cost for the sake of an uncertain future good. For most of us, our instinct for social harmony and self-preservation is too strong. We are wired to go along to get along. The authority figure, whether a lab-coated scientist or a demanding boss, represents the immediate, tangible reality of the tribe. To disobey is to risk exile. And for a social species, exile has always been a fate worse than death. The Rebel's Dilemma explains why, in the moment, obedience isn't a sign of weakness, it's a rational, if soul-corroding, survival strategy. Your brain isn't betraying you when it obeys, it's trying in its own misguided way to protect you from the terrifying prospect of standing alone. Number 2. The banality of evil's to-do list. You are not asked to commit a genocide. You are asked to process relocation paperwork. You are not asked to destroy a community. You are asked to maximize quarterly efficiency by 15%. This is the banality of evil, a concept from philosopher Hannah Arendt, and it reveals the most insidious secret of obedience. The most horrific outcomes are rarely achieved through grand dramatic acts of villainy, but through a long series of small, mundane, and perfectly reasonable tasks carried out by people who are just trying to get through their workday. The truly terrifying authority figure isn't the one screaming apocalyptic commands. It's the one who calmly hands you a spreadsheet. They don't activate your moral outrage, they bypass it entirely by focusing your attention on procedure, detail, and technical compliance. Your job isn't to think about the big picture, your job is to ensure that column F matches column G. You are not a monster, you are a meticulous accountant. You are not a collaborator in oppression, you are a highly efficient logistics coordinator. The system is designed so that no single person feels the weight of the final, monstrous outcome. The moral cost is divided into such small, insignificant fractions that it feels like zero. This is how ordinary bureaucracies can produce extraordinary suffering. The clerk who stamps the denial of a visa application isn't thinking about the family that will be torn apart, they're thinking about the correct box to check. The engineer who designs a more efficient furnace isn't thinking about what it will be used for, they're solving a thermodynamics problem. The authority in these situations isn't a person, but the process itself, the rulebook, the policy, the way things are done. And obeying a process feels infinitely more defensible than obeying a person, even when the process is leading you straight to hell. Your brain is lulled into a sense of normalcy by the sheer, soul-crushing boredom of the tasks. Evil, it turns out, doesn't always look evil. Sometimes, it looks like a Tuesday afternoon spent filling out TPS reports. Number 3. The seduction of surrogate will. There is a profound, almost childlike comfort in not being the one who has to decide. Making choices is hard. It requires energy, it carries risk, and it brands you with responsibility for the outcome. But when an authority figure gives you a direct order, that burden vanishes. Your will is replaced by a surrogate will. You are no longer an actor making a choice, you are an instrument carrying out a task. This psychological handover is one of the most seductive and dangerous aspects of obedience. It's the mental equivalent of taking off a heavy backpack and handing it to someone else. This state is sometimes called the agentic shift, a term Milgram used to describe the moment a person sees themselves as an agent carrying out the wishes of another person, rather than an autonomous individual. In this mode, your sense of personal responsibility evaporates. You are a hammer, and the authority is the hand that wields you. A hammer doesn't feel guilty for hitting a nail, It's just doing what hammers do. This is why participants in the obedience studies could continue despite their obvious distress. They had verbally transferred responsibility to the experimenter. They would plead, "You're responsible for this." And the experimenter would calmly accept it. With that, the psychological burden was officially passed. The participant was now free to just follow instructions, their own moral compass spinning uselessly in its casing. You see this everywhere, from the military's chain of command to a junior employee blindly following a boss's disastrous directive. "I was just following orders" isn't just a legal defense, it's a psychological reality for the person saying it. In that moment, they genuinely were just an instrument. The seduction lies in the relief. It is cognitively and emotionally easier to be a tool than to be a sovereign being with the constant, wearying duty of choice. Obedience in this light isn't just about power, it's a transaction. The authority gets control, and you get a vacation from your own conscience. It's the most expensive vacation you'll ever take, and you pay for it with your autonomy. Number 4. The trap of trapped investment. You've been standing in the slowest moving line at the DMV for 2 hours. Your back aches, your will to live is fading, but you stay. Why? Because you've already invested 2 hours. To leave now would be to admit those 2 hours were wasted. This is the sunk cost fallacy, and it's not just about bad movies or terrible relationships, it's a powerful, often invisible, engine of obedience to a failing or corrupt authority. Once you've invested your time, your effort, your belief, or your reputation into a system, it becomes exponentially harder to walk away, even when that system starts asking you to do things you never thought you would. Think of it as the psychological version of in for a penny, in for a pound. In Milgram's experiment, no one started at the 450-volt switch. They started at 15 volts. By the time they were at 150 volts, feeling deeply uncomfortable, the internal monologue wasn't just "I should stop." It was, "But if I stop now, then what was the point of administering those first 150 volts? Was that person suffering for nothing? I've already come this far, I might as well see it through." The authority figure, in this case the experimenter, leverages this. His prompts like "the experiment requires that you continue" are a direct appeal to the participant's sunk cost. To quit is to render their previous compliance meaningless. This is the glue that holds cults together long after their leader's insanity becomes obvious. Followers have invested their entire lives, their savings, their social connections. To leave is to admit they were wrong, that their investment was a catastrophic loss. So, they double down. They obey the next, even more outlandish command, because the alternative, cognitive and emotional bankruptcy, is too painful to face. This principle operates in toxic workplaces, abusive governments, and even in our own daily lives. We follow the bad plan because we've already spent so much time on the bad plan. We obey the failing authority because disobedience would mean admitting we were fools for obeying in the first place. Your brain would rather follow a path off a cliff than admit it took a wrong turn 3 miles back. Number 5. The proximity principle. Close your eyes and try to punch your screen. Go on, really visualize it. Your arm tenses, your fist clenches. It feels aggressive, right? A bit violent. Now, imagine pushing a button on a keyboard that, somewhere in another city, causes a robotic arm to punch your screen. Feels different, doesn't it? More detached. Clean. This is the proximity principle in action, and it's a cornerstone of why we obey destructive orders. The more physically and emotionally distant we are from the consequences of our actions, the easier it is to obey the command to perform them. Milgram discovered this by accident, and then he weaponized the insight. In his initial experiment, the learner was in an adjacent room. You could hear his screams, but you couldn't see him. Obedience was high. But in a variation where the learner was in the same room, just a few feet away, obedience rates plummeted. When the participant had to physically force the learner's hand onto a shock plate, obedience rates fell even further. The moment you have to look into the eyes of the person you're harming, the abstract command from the man in the lab coat shatters against the concrete reality of another human being's suffering. Your brain can't maintain the fiction of assisting science when your senses are screaming hurting person. This explains the chilling efficiency of modern remote-controlled warfare. A drone pilot in Nevada can press a button and end lives 7,000 miles away, then clock out and drive home for dinner. The moral burden is diffused by the sheer, unimaginable distance. There are no screams to hear, no blood to see, just coordinates on a screen and a mission accomplished notification. The same principle applies to corporate layoffs conducted via a mass, impersonal email, or a landlord evicting a tenant they've never met through a formal letter. The authority figure doesn't have to witness the tears, the confusion, the despair. By insulating the commander from the commanded, and the actor from the consequence, the system creates a perfect vacuum for obedience to flourish. Your conscience is a sensory organ, and when you remove the sensory input, it stays quiet. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.